On a night when three moons rose together over the kingdom of Veloria, painting the sky in shades of silver and violet, a young princess made a promise so powerful it would rewrite the fate of her entire kingdom. She was only 12 years old. She had no crown yet, no army, no magic she could fully control. All she had was her word, and a fear she refused to let win. But that promise would cost her more than she ever imagined. It would force her to walk into a realm where light did not exist, where the laughter of children had been stolen and locked away in shadows. It would make her question everyone she trusted, including her own family. Would Princess Elara keep her promise, or would it become the very thing that destroyed her? Stay with me, because by the end of the story, you will understand why the people of Veloria still whisper her name today, not as a princess, but as a savior. If you love fantasy stories full of magic, mystery, and heart, make sure you watch this till the very end, because the twist in the middle of the story will completely change the way you see the beginning. And if this is your first time here, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a magical story like this one again. Before we continue, I would love to know, where are you watching this from? Comment down below and tell me which state in the USA you're joining us from tonight. I read every single comment, and I love knowing how far these stories travel. Now, let's step into the world of Veloria. Long before Elara was born, Veloria was known as the most beautiful kingdom in the known world. It was not built on flat land like other kingdoms. Instead, it rose from the earth in layers, floating islands connected by bridges of living vine, rivers that glowed faintly blue at night, and forests so dense with ancient trees that sunlight had to fight its way through the leaves just to touch the ground. The people of Veloria were not ordinary either. Many of them carried small traces of old magic in their blood, passed down from ancestors who had once made a pact with the spirits of the land centuries ago. That pact had given Veloria its beauty, its protection, and its peace. But peace, as the elders always warned, never lasts forever without a price. Elara was born on the same night that the three moons aligned, an event that happened only once every 100 years. The kingdom's oldest seer, a woman named Old Miri who lived deep in the Whispering Woods, had predicted this birth long before it happened. She had told the king and queen that a daughter born under the triple moon would either save Veloria or become the reason for its fall. From that moment on, Elara grew up in a strange kind of shadow. The palace loved her, but the palace also feared her. The king and queen adored their daughter deeply, yet they could never fully shake the seer's warning from their minds. Elara noticed it too. The way servants sometimes looked at her a second too long. The way children in the courtyard would stop playing when she walked by, unsure whether to run toward her or away from her. Despite this, Elara grew into a kind-hearted, curious, and brave young girl. She spent her days exploring the palace gardens, listening to stories from the old guards, and sneaking off to the edges of the Whispering Woods whenever she could. She did not want to be feared. She wanted to belong. She had no idea that her destiny was already beginning to unfold. Elara's closest friend during those years was a young stable boy named Torin, the only child in the palace who never treated her differently because of the prophecy. Together, they would climb the low branches of the orchard trees, race each other along the riverbanks, and invent stories about the floating islands that drifted above the kingdom like slow-moving clouds. Torin never asked her about the triple moon. He never lowered his voice when speaking to her, the way so many adults did. To him, she was simply Elara, a girl who laughed too loudly at her own jokes and who was terrified of spiders despite being unafraid of almost everything else. It was through friendships like this that Elara learned who she truly was, separate from the weight of prophecy placed upon her shoulders. She began to understand that titles and legends could shape how others saw her, but they did not have to shape who she became. Still, there were nights when she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling of her chamber, wondering what it truly meant to be born under the triple moon. Was she destined for greatness, or for ruin? Old Miri's warning lingered in the corners of the palace like a shadow that refused to fade, and no matter how much her parents tried to shield her from it, Elara always felt its presence. It started with whispers. A boy from the fishing village near the Silver River did not come home one evening. His mother searched every corner of the village, calling his name into the darkness, but there was no answer. The next morning, the entire village gathered, torches lit, hearts heavy with worry. 3 days later, another child disappeared. Then another. Within 2 weeks, 7 children from different parts of Veloria had vanished without a single trace. No footprints. No signs of struggle. It was as if the shadows themselves had reached out and swallowed them whole. Fear spread through the kingdom like wildfire. Parents refused to let their children leave their sight. Doors that once stayed open through the night were now bolted shut before sunset. The marketplace, once filled with laughter and music, grew quiet and tense. Elara, now living in the palace as a young princess with growing awareness of the world around her, noticed the change immediately. She saw the fear in her mother's eyes, the tightness in her father's jaw whenever the topic was raised in the throne room. She tried asking questions, but every time she did, the answers were vague, rushed, or avoided entirely. "It is being handled," her father would say. "You need not worry about such things," her mother would add, forcing a smile that never quite reached her eyes. But Elara was not a child who accepted silence easily. She had grown up listening closely to the world around her, and she could tell when something was being hidden. The way the guards had doubled at the palace gates. The way old Miri had not been seen in the village for weeks. The way maps of the Whispering Woods had suddenly disappeared from the library shelves. Even Torin was not spared from the fear that gripped the kingdom. His younger cousin, a bright-eyed girl of only 6, had been among the first to disappear. Elara watched her friend change in the days that followed, the light in his eyes dimming, his laughter growing rare, his shoulders carrying a weight no child his age should ever have to bear. She wanted desperately to comfort him, but she had no answers to give, only questions that no one around her seemed willing to acknowledge. One evening, she overheard 2 guards speaking in hushed tones near the palace kitchens. They mentioned the Whispering Woods, a name she had heard before only in warnings and old stories. They mentioned Old Miri, and they mentioned something called the Shadow Realm, a term that sent a chill down Elara's spine even though she did not yet understand its meaning. When she stepped closer to hear more, the guards fell silent, exchanging a nervous glance before quickly changing the subject. That was the moment Elara knew, without any doubt, that the adults around her were keeping something from her, something far larger and more dangerous than they were willing to admit. One night, unable to sleep, Elara made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find out the truth herself. Under the cover of darkness, Elara slipped out of the palace through a servant's passage she had discovered years earlier during one of her many explorations. She wrapped herself in a dark cloak, took a small lantern, and made her way toward the Whispering Woods, the one place her parents had strictly forbidden her from entering alone. The woods were quieter than she expected. No animal sounds. No wind through the leaves. Just silence, thick and heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. She found old Miri's cottage deep within the trees, its windows glowing with a faint green light. When she knocked, the door creaked open before she even touched it again. Old Miri was waiting for her, as if she had known Elara would come. "You carry the weight of the triple moon," Old Miri said softly, gesturing for Elara to sit by the fire. "It was only a matter of time before you sought the truth." Elara's heart pounded as Old Miri explained what she had discovered. The missing children had not simply vanished into thin air. They had been pulled into a hidden dimension known as the Shadow Realm, a place that existed alongside Veloria but could not be seen or reached by ordinary means. It was a realm of darkness, silence, and forgotten magic, where light could not survive for long. But why the children? Elara asked, her voice trembling. What does the Shadow Realm want with them? Old Miri's expression grew grave. The Shadow Realm feeds on innocence and light. Children carry more of both than anyone else. Something, or someone, is using them to strengthen a darkness that has been sleeping beneath Veloria for centuries. Elara sat in stunned silence, the weight of the truth settling over her like a heavy blanket. Her home, her people, their children. All of it was under a threat far greater than anyone in the palace had dared to admit. That night, sitting by the dim firelight in old Mary's cottage, Elara made a promise, not just to herself, but to every family who had lost a child, every parent whose eyes had grown hollow with grief. "I will bring them back," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Whatever it takes. Even if it means walking into the shadow realm myself." Old Mary studied her carefully, searching for any trace of doubt. She found none. "Then you must prepare," Old Mary said. "For the path ahead will test everything you believe about yourself. If this story is pulling you in the way I think it is, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is full of tales just like this one, waiting for you." Elara knew she could not attempt this journey alone. Old Mary arranged for 2 companions to join her. Ren, a loyal palace guard who had watched Elara grow up and would rather die than let harm come to her, and Fun, a small winged forest spirit who had once been trapped by dark magic himself and understood the shadow realm better than anyone alive. Together, the 3 of them set out toward the edge of Veloria, where the boundary between the living world and the shadow realm was said to be thinnest, a place known as the Hollow Bridge. The journey was far from easy. Their first challenge came at the Bridge of Truth, an ancient stone crossing that would only allow passage to those who spoke with complete honesty. The moment Elara stepped onto the bridge, it began to glow faintly, sensing her intentions. "You must answer 3 questions truthfully," Finn warned her. "If you lie, even once, the bridge will collapse beneath you." The first question echoed in Elara's mind. "Why do you seek the Shadow Realm?" "To save the children," she answered honestly. The bridge remained steady. The second question came, heavier than the first. "Are you afraid?" Elara hesitated only a moment. "Yes. I am terrified." The bridge glowed brighter, accepting her honesty. The third question was the hardest of all. "If you fail, will you regret trying?" Tears welled in her eyes as she answered. "No. I would regret staying silent far more." The bridge stabilized completely, allowing them to cross safely. Beyond the bridge, they entered the Forest of Forgotten Names, a place where memories could be stolen if one was not careful. Whispers echoed between the trees, calling out names, trying to lure travelers into forgetting who they were. Ren nearly lost himself for a moment, his eyes glazing over as the whispers grew louder, but Elara grabbed his hand and reminded him of his sister's name, his mother's face, his home, pulling him back before the forest could claim his memory completely. Through every trial, Elara's fear did not disappear. But something inside her began to shift. She started to understand that courage was not the absence of fear, it was choosing to keep moving forward despite it. There were quieter moments on the journey too, moments that Elara would remember long after the danger had passed. Nights spent huddled around a small fire, while Finn told stories of the forest spirits he had known before his imprisonment. Mornings when Ren would teach her simple sword forms, not because he expected her to fight, but because he wanted her to feel a little less powerless in a world that had asked so much of her. These small moments of warmth reminded Elara why she was fighting in the first place, not for glory or legend, but for the simple, precious ordinariness of a childhood that deserved to be protected. As they neared the entrance to the Shadow Realm, Finn revealed something that shattered everything Elara believed about her mission. The darkness consuming Veloria's children was not caused by an outside enemy at all. Centuries ago, an ancestor of Elara's royal bloodline had made a forbidden pact with an ancient shadow spirit in exchange for Veloria's magical prosperity. That pact had granted the kingdom its glowing rivers, its floating islands, its magic-touched people, but it came with a hidden cost that had remained dormant for generations. Every 100 years, under the light of the triple moon, the pact demanded a payment, children's light, taken to sustain the shadow spirit's power. Elara felt the ground shift beneath her, not physically, but emotionally. Her kingdom's beauty had been built upon a debt her own family had unknowingly inherited. The prophecy surrounding her birth was not a coincidence. She had been born specifically during this cycle, meant to be either the one who finally paid this debt in full, or the one who broke the pact forever. For a moment, doubt crept into her heart. If her own bloodline was responsible for this suffering, did she truly deserve to be the one to fix it? But then she thought of the children, their names, their families, their stolen laughter. And she realized something important. The mistakes of the past did not define her.
Her choices did.
I did not create this darkness, she said firmly, more to herself than to her companions. But I will be the one who ends it. The entrance to the shadow realm appeared as a tear in the air itself, a swirling void of black and deep violet at the heart of an ancient, hollowed tree. Fun warned them that once they stepped through, time would move differently, and there would be no turning back until the pact was either fulfilled or broken. Elara stepped through first. The shadow realm was unlike anything she had ever imagined. The sky, if it could even be called that, shifted in slow waves of darkness. The ground beneath her feet felt soft and unstable, like walking on shifting fog. In the distance, she could hear faint echoes of children's voices, crying, calling for their parents, calling for home. Following the sound, the three companions moved deeper into the realm until they found them, dozens of children, trapped inside glowing orbs of shadow, suspended in the air like captured stars. Their light flickered weakly, being slowly drained to feed the ancient spirit bound to Elara's bloodline. At the center of it all stood the shadow spirit itself, a towering figure made of shifting darkness and glowing red eyes, ancient beyond comprehension. Another of the royal line has come to pay the debt, the spirit's voice echoed, deep and hollow. Will you offer your light willingly, princess? Or will you struggle, like the others before you? Elara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. I am not here to pay your debt. I am here to end it. The spirit let out a sound that might have been laughter, dark and cold. The pact cannot simply be broken, child. It was written in blood and sealed with power far greater than yours. Then I will fight for something greater than power, Elara replied. I will fight with truth and with love for these children, something your darkness has never understood. The confrontation that followed was unlike any physical battle Veloria had ever known. The shadow spirit unleashed waves of darkness, trying to overwhelm Elara's spirit and claim her light just as it had claimed the children's. Ren fought bravely to protect her, while Feng used his forest magic to shield the trapped children's fading light from being drained further. But Elara understood something the spirit did not expect. This battle could not be won through strength alone. It had to be won through the very promise she had made. She closed her eyes amid the chaos and thought of every family waiting back in Veloria, the mother who no longer sang at the market, the father who stood silently by the empty doorway each night, the siblings who had stopped playing games because their playmates were gone. She thought of her promise, and in that moment, her fear transformed into something stronger, unwavering determination fueled by love, not for glory, but for the people she had sworn to protect. A warm golden light began to grow around her, small at first, then expanding rapidly, pushing back against the shadow spirit's darkness. It was not magic drawn from bloodline or pact. It was something purer, the light of a promise kept, of courage chosen despite fear. The shadow spirit recoiled, its form flickering weakly under the growing light. This is not possible, it hissed. The pact demands payment. The pact demanded fear and silence, Elara said, her voice steady and strong. I offer neither. With one final surge of golden light, the ancient pact shattered completely, breaking the chains binding the trapped children's light. The glowing orbs dissolved, releasing every child unharmed, their voices crying out in confusion and relief as they found themselves suddenly free. The shadow spirit, weakened beyond recovery, faded into the void, its centuries-old hold over Veloria finally broken forever. As the shadow realm collapsed around them, Elara, Ren, and Finn gathered the freed children and made their way back through the tear in the air, emerging once more into the moonlit forests of Veloria. Word spread quickly through the kingdom. Families rushed toward the Whispering Woods, drawn by an inexplicable pull, as if they somehow knew their children were coming home. The reunion that followed was filled with tears, laughter, and embraces that lasted long into the night. Mothers held their children so tightly, it seemed they never wanted to let go again. Fathers who had not smiled in weeks finally allowed themselves to weep with relief. Elara stood at the edge of the celebration, watching quietly, exhaustion settling over her. She had not done this for recognition or glory. She had done it because she had made a promise, and she intended to keep it. But the people of Veloria did not let her stand in the shadows for long. One by one, families approached her, thanking her, embracing her, calling her by a new name that would follow her for the rest of her life, not just Princess Elara, but the Promise Keeper of Veloria. In the weeks that followed, Veloria began to heal. The kingdom's beauty remained, but it was no longer built upon a hidden debt or forgotten pact. It was rebuilt upon something far stronger: trust, courage, and the understanding that true magic did not come from ancient bargains, but from the choices people made for one another. Elara often reflected on everything that had happened, sitting quietly by the palace window overlooking the glowing rivers she had once feared held a dark secret. She had learned that fear does not disappear simply because you become brave. Fear remains, but courage means moving forward anyway. She had learned that the mistakes of those before us do not have to define who we become. And most importantly, she had learned that a promise, when made with sincerity and kept with unwavering resolve, holds more power than any ancient magic ever could. Torin remained by her side through all of it, no longer just a stable boy, but one of her most trusted advisors, a reminder of the ordinary friendship that had helped her stay grounded even when the weight of prophecy threatened to pull her under. Together, they watched Veloria grow into a kingdom defined not by fear of what might come, but by gratitude for what had been reclaimed. Years later, long after Elara had grown into the Queen of Veloria, parents would still tell their children the story of the night 3 moons aligned, and a young princess made a promise that saved them all. They would end the story the same way every time. A true promise is not measured by how easily it is made, but by how bravely it is kept, even in the darkest of realms. If this story moved you the way it moved me while telling it, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves a good fantasy tale, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next magical story we bring to life. And before you go, don't forget to drop a comment and let me know which state in the USA you're watching from tonight. I truly love connecting with all of you from every corner of the country. Thank you for joining me in Veloria. Until the next story, take care, stay brave, and never underestimate the power of a promise kept.